So I'm Emma and this is Steve, and I'll let him just get his stuff together for a moment. But we're part of the engagement team for the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and we're here today to talk to you about funding possibilities with us and opportunities, but also just because it's good to see faces and not just be faced with our website, which is very informative, but it's nice to know who you're emailing and who you're talking to. So it's just a bit about getting to know each other as well. I'm relatively new to working in Sheffield, so I'm still slowly learning. Steve's been working in Sheffield a bit longer than me, so I'm going to say he's the expert in the room. But today we'll go through. We've got. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to start my stopwatch because we don't want to go on too long. But today, a rough agenda. We're going to do a brief who we are and what we do. Then Jenny asked us if we could share a bit about what we're funding in Sheffield. So we pulled that together just for interest. A little bit about our new strategy, Heritage 2033, which is a 10-year strategy, which is good because it means that there's not so much change, every couple of years. It means we can have a longer term vision, which is great. Then we're going to do the highlights of what grants are available, because all that information is available on our website. And if I just read it through to you, it's a bit dry, so I don't want to bore you all this morning. But we will touch on that, and then we've got a project example and time for questions, I think. And you're going to keep us both in check. And Steve, are you ready? Have you had a sip of your coffee? There we go.
Very much. Morning, everybody. Sorry, it was all a bit of chaos and a bit fluster this morning, but you've got to love the trains, haven't you? Yes, thanks, Emma. So Emma Hopesache and myself, Stephen Henry, we're both engagement managers in the North team for the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So we're here to sort of connect organisations together, bring people to our funding opportunities and provide all that kind of support you might need before you apply, just to help you feel a bit more confident applying to us, because I know it can be quite daunting. And the North basically covers sort of arbitrary lines that cover kind of North Lincolnshire, South of Yorkshire, all the way up to the borders. So it's quite a big area, but we kind of focus on sort of South Yorkshire, myself on the whole, but Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, all over the place, really. Which computer am I, Emma? That one. You. So yeah, so we thought it'd be nice to give you a bit of background about where the lottery started. And the first TV show, the first draw was on the 19th of November, 1994. If you looked at that picture in the top right corner, you'd think it was about 1955. It looks, years ago, didn't it? But yeah, and there's money that goes from every ticket raised. About 20% of it goes to the National Lottery Good Causes, and there's 12 different distributors. So there's ourselves, there's people like the National Lottery Community Fund, there's the Arts Council, there's other people, the British Film Institute as well. All these places that are like do a lot for sports, they do a lot for community and the arts and that type of thing. So all the money that comes to us, that comes to the good causes, we award 20% of that. And we're a non-departmental government body, so like an arm's length body. You've maybe heard that term before. And we answer kind of to DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. But all our decisions are made locally. They're not, the government doesn't sort of interfere in our decisions and that type of things. They're all made regionally and locally. I'm sure you struggle with these things. So my first time using a tablet, I was quite excited about this. I feel like it makes me look professional. So yeah, so we're the UK's largest funder of heritage. We fund kind of groups like yourselves to deliver heritage projects. The exciting thing I like to say, since 1994, we've actually given £9.2 billion for over 52,000 heritage projects, which, yeah, I like to slow down and emphasize that because it's crazy money. £9.2 billion to over 52,000 projects. Thanks for asking me to repeat it because I love saying it. It's brilliant. It's amazing figures, really. So yeah, so we have the vision, as you can see there, it's for heritage to be valued, cared for, sustained by everybody, for everybody now and in the future. And again, we do this by funding projects that bring out kind of benefits for people, benefits for places, and for the natural environment as well. And that's to various community organisations, heritage organisations. As long as your project's connecting people with heritage, these are the projects that we support. We've got a newish strategy. It launched last year now, actually. It's a 10-year strategy called Heritage 2033 because it runs till 2033. I think they were up all night thinking of that title for it. And this sets out our kind of like the principles and the ambitions for the next 10 years. It helps us take that longer view of what we want for heritage, what we want to achieve. I'd recommend reading the strategy online. It's on our website. It only takes 10 minutes, but it really sets out really well what we want to achieve, and it'll give you a good, clear idea of that. So yeah, you might want to know who we fund. It's always useful. So yeah, obviously not-for-profit organisations, private owners of heritage assets, which is kind of like buildings, landscapes, objects, that type of thing, and partnerships as well. We always kind of encourage partnerships where possible with any application to us. So some examples of the kind of organisations we do fund, that's going to be charities, trusts, charitable incorporated organisations, community and voluntary groups, parish councils, faith-based church organisations, local authorities, other public sectors, and again, private owners of heritage. Although you'd have to demonstrate if you're a private owner, your maximum you can apply for is 250,000, but you have to demonstrate that the public benefit outweighs any personal gain. So if you've got your eye on a little portrait in the National Portrait Gallery, we're probably not the funder for you. What you do have to have, you need to have a bank account, you need to have a governing document, and 2 or more members that aren't related or don't live at the same address. And you'll read all this guidance before you apply anyway. If there's anything you're not sure about, just get in touch with the North team. It's what we're here for. You can get in touch straight away with me and Emma. It's kind of what we do. So what we fund again, projects that connect people and community to our heritage. Heritage is a big old thing. It's anything from like museums, libraries, archives, historic buildings, nature and habitats, industrial legacy, cultural traditions, stories, all kinds of different things. What I ought to point out is that we can't fund any work that would be considered your organisation's statutory work or statutory responsibility. So we can't cover kind of existing costs or activities that have taken place already, or fund projects that kind of promote political or religious beliefs, all that type of thing. We also can't fund artificial grass, in case you were thinking. Doing a bit for the environment. So there you go. Is that you now, Emma? Perfect.
So you've got me again. We're going to do a bit of swapping and changing, but Steve might have to stay up here with me in a moment because we decided to do a fancy bit where we're back and forth. And yeah, with a microphone, it doesn't make it as smooth potentially as we thought it might be. But yeah, so on the screen, you can see our definition of heritage. We don't define it, which is a good thing, we think, but also sometimes, we ask you to define it. Which means it's very broad, and it is that heritage can be anything from the past that you value and want to pass on to future generations. So that is what we mean by heritage, and Steve already listed some examples of what it might look like or what that might encompass. So this slide is especially for all of you here today, and it's a bit of information about Sheffield in particular. So since 1994, we funded 352 heritage projects in Sheffield, and they total an investment of 60 million and nearly 900,000 pounds worth of funding, which is quite a lot, which is nice. It was nice actually to go digging and get these stats for you. It was very interesting. And in the past 5 sort of financial years, which is under our old strategy, we received 67 applications with a total grant request of 18 million, just over 18 million from Sheffield, and we awarded £6,600,000 to 39 projects, which means the success rate in Sheffield is roughly 58.2%. which is good. It fluctuates in the North region. The success rate kind of fluctuates between sort of high 50s and up to 70%-ish throughout decision meetings and things like that, and depends on competition levels and all sorts. So yeah, it's just an interesting fact. And during that period, we only awarded one of our large grants, which was, some of you might know about it, which was to Harmony Works Trust for the restoration and revitalisation of Canada House. And that was an award of just over 4 million. And it was the only large award. There we go. Oh, no, well, it's nice to have you in the room. Yes. I haven't had much direct involvement with the Harmony Works project, but it is, every time it gets brought up, it sounds very exciting. So I'm glad you're here. And yeah, we're here today. We very kindly been invited by Joined Up Heritage, because essentially we want to make sure that our funding portfolio across the next 10 years better reflects Sheffield's heritage sector and wider communities. And here's just a fun map of some recent projects that are going on at the moment. So in July's decision meeting, so very, very recently awarded, there's Harcourt Road, which is a project that involves the co-creation of a mobile museum that collects and showcases stories of migration and community organising of two streets that share the same name in Hong Kong, Sheffield. So that's the one with the bike. It's going to be on an e-bike, I think. So that's why the bike. We've also got the Ken Hawley Collection Trust. So, and that's a project to install an exhibition at the Kelham Island Museum, celebrating 200 years of knife making in Sheffield. We've also got, and it was my first trip actually to Graves Park not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I sent Steve loads of pictures because he was in meetings online all day at home and I was in the wonderful Graves Park. But they have a project with us which is aimed at engaging varied and diverse communities in archaeological, historical and ecological activities. And then we also have the Sheffield General Cemetery Trust, which are to an end of a large project with us at the moment, but we have funded a project with them that will see guided tours and an exhibition created based on research around the Great Flood of 1864. So this is just to give you a bit of a flavour of what we do in Sheffield and what we're doing near you. Yes. Oh, are you Caroline? Ah, yes, we were told we needed to find you. So yes. Oh, okay, lovely. There you go. Look, good job. Everyone's happy with the shout outs. So yes, I'm very glad to be here and share the wonderful stuff that's going on already in Sheffield, and a little bit now about what Heritage 2033 is all about. So this is our 10-year vision, and it launched, as Steve said, last year now. Officially it launched, I think it was the 2nd of March in 2023, but we've officially been operating under it since January this year. It's been a gradual transition. We're getting there. We're through the other side, which is great. And it's a 10-year strategy. And the main vision is that heritage will be valued, cared for and sustained for everyone, and that's now and in the future. And we want to see benefits for people, places and our natural environment. The big thing, though, which I'm very pleased about, is that our application process has been simplified and streamlined. So we'll have to wait to see if you agree with us, whether that's the case. But I'm very much hoping it is. And so far, we've got some good feedback. So I think, Steve, it's back over to you, and I'll stay up at the front with you.
Heritage 2033. Every application that comes to us has to address these four, what they've called investment principles. These are going to guide over the next 10 years all our decision making. And so we thought it might be useful just to go through each one in a little bit more depth, because we want these to enable you to apply for what you really need, but kind of set in the context of what makes a really good project, and allows us to kind of understand the strengths and potential of your own project as well. So as I say, you'll need to take all four into account. Kind of strength and focus of each one is up to you to decide and to demonstrate in your application. So, okay, please. Thank you. The first one is saving heritage, and I must point out these are in no particular order at all. Hopefully this one's pretty self-explanatory. So through all our programs and initiatives, we're going to commit our funding to protect, to conserve and to revitalise heritage that's at risk. And by at risk, we don't mean like English heritage is at risk kind of programme. It's all kinds of heritage that's in poor condition, or it's at risk of loss or decline, damage, neglect, or even just of being forgotten about, essentially. We want it to be valued, we want it to be understood. So the assessors are going to be looking to see if your plans are realistic, achievable, if they're appropriate for the project, for the heritage itself, and for your organisation. Essentially, just need to show that you kind of clearly understand what you're doing to save heritage, the impact that your project's going to make. We're doing a little kind of switch.
Yeah, we're a true double act in this moment. So yes, the next investment principle is protecting the environment. And it's because we want to support nature recovery and environmental sustainability to help the UK meet its nature recovery targets and mitigate the impacts of climate change. So what I will say at this point is, with this investment principle, our applicants have sort of two hats on. We have applicants who are running a natural heritage project, where the core of the project is about biodiversity or restoring habitats or engaging people with natural heritage directly. And then the other hat is if your project isn't at its core about natural heritage, really what we're looking for is evidence that you're trying to minimize your environmental footprint. So encouraging things like public transport, if it involves capital works, reusing materials you already have, as opposed to getting new things in. So it's just about your footprint. So with this one, I think it helps to think of it from those two angles, basically, because we understand that not every applicant is going to be, having a project on biodiversity, for example. And it's going to be up to you to define what this investment principle means to you.
Yeah, again, we've got inclusion, access and participation, which was a key thing on our previous strategy, so it probably won't be a huge surprise to you to take a centre stage on this one as well. We really want organisations to kind of break down barriers to access and participation for people who are essentially underserved by heritage. You might want to include things like digital heritage resources, perhaps to make heritage more accessible, make it more enjoyable, promoting better access to that information, basically just enabling your projects to increase their impact and reach, essentially. So we want to involve a more diverse range of people in heritage. We want to see investment in volunteering, investment in heritage careers, co-created projects, certainly in leadership and diversifying strong governance, all kinds of kind of people-driven projects, basically, which are going to develop knowledge and skills in the heritage sector. Oh, perfect. That's really nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great way to involve. Thing we want. That's the sort of stuff we want to see. Anything kind of thinking outside the box that's going to get people, particularly we've noticed in the north where we get people who are obviously underserved and people struggling financially. It's a big thing for us in the north to get people in from those communities too. So perfect.
So the fourth investment principle is around organisational sustainability. Oh. And this is about strengthening heritage to be adaptive and financially resilient, so it can contribute to communities and economies. So this one is quite exciting. It, again, is open to interpretation. The idea is that we're flexible and you can apply to us what you actually need. But this one, I am a little bit biased. I'm quite excited about this one because there's lots of possibilities. So a project could include sort of developing skills, developing capacity, strengthening governance and leadership, sort of reviewing plans for where you want to be in the next 5-10 years or whatever time period you're looking at. It could be a project focused on figuring out what the next steps actually are for your organisation, what's best for the heritage. And there is an option, because this is an investment principle, you know, things like exploring new methods of engagement, new audiences, finding out who you currently engage with, who you might want to engage with in the future, trialing new income generation. There's lots of possibilities here. And again, as Steve was talking about, with in the North team, this is another big one in the North overall. So watch this space, basically. And they are the 4 investment principles. So I'm going to just have a breather, because I feel like when we do these presentations, we just reel through tons of information. So yes, I am now going to do the bit of some of the highlights for what grants with us actually look like. A lot of you in the room have previous experience, so that's great. But these are the highlights. You can find them all on our website under our funding tab. But the one that we are talking about most today, potentially, is the £10,000 to £250,000 grant bracket. Now, grants with this size, there are no deadlines to apply. So you can apply whenever you're ready, and we'd encourage you to make sure you are ready before you apply. And the decisions are made locally in the North, and we have a decision meeting once a month. So that's how we are able to say that, well, we aim to give a decision within 8 weeks, and it's 8 weeks from when you pass application checks. So if you submit your application, but you forgot to upload job descriptions or your project plan or things like that, and there's a bit of back and forth between you and application checks, that will be slightly longer, or could be slightly longer. So keep that in mind. But 8 weeks, I still think it's fairly quick for a decision. So yeah, we're on 8-week decisions for this. We have an optional project inquiry service, which you can send us a summary of your project idea to get an initial steer on whether it's something we can fund, things you might want to think about. And it is a good opportunity, because we know how much time and effort and energy goes into putting a full application together. So it's a really good way to sort of get in touch with us, talk to the engagement team, have some initial feedback and a bit of a steer before you've put all that energy into something that you might need to tweak or change, or potentially, hopefully not, but might not be eligible necessarily for what we can fund. So the projects of this size, it can be up to 5 years. And the payment, the way it's paid is if you're successful in applying to us, you get 50% upfront. And then you do a bit of a report to say what you spent the money on and things like that. And then you'd get the next 30% installment upfront again. But the final 20% of the amount you've asked us for is paid in arrears after the project's completed. So it's always worth us pointing this out now, because sometimes it can present a bit of a cash flow issue, or something you need to think about it basically at the early stages, just to be aware that final 20% will be in arrears. So the final point I'm going to leave on is, let me find my notes on this to make sure that I get it exactly right. We do ask in the application for this grant size if you've approached anyone else for funding, and for this reason, we do recommend that you consider other funders or organisations or people, that might be able to support the project. And that could be cash or non-cash contributions. And essentially, it helps to show interest and commitment to what you want to do. So while we can fund, 100% of the total of the project costs, we do ask sort of for you to explain why that should be the case in your application. So yeah, and then this is the grant bracket, as Steve's already mentioned earlier, that private owners can apply up to £250,000 as long as public benefit outweighs any private gain. And then I'm not going to spend too long on the larger grant bracket, because it is a totally different ballgame, essentially. And there's a mandatory expression of interest. So it's not like the project inquiry. It's if you want to apply for over £250,000, you have to do an expression of interest, which then we either invite you to apply or not, essentially. There are quarterly deadlines. It's a 2-stage application process. So you'd have a development phase of up to 2 years, and that's what the first application would be for. And then you'd have to apply for a delivery phase, which can be up to 5 years. So it's 2 applications. For this grant bracket, we do have requirements for match funding. So if it's under £1 million, we ask for 5% contribution, and anything over £1 million, it's 10%. The decisions are still made in areas, but it's our committee members that make the decision. It's not internal senior staff and head of investment and things like that. This grant bracket is exclusively available for not-for-profit organisations. And I think, well, the payment, you can see all the details on our website. But the payments are all in arrears, essentially, if it's over £250,000. If, for example, your development phase, that first application is for £250,000, it's paid the same way, where it's 50% upfront, 30%, and then the 20% in arrears. But as you can tell, when we get into details like this, it starts to become me just standing and saying numbers at you, and you can find this out for yourself if you're interested. So, and I think we're all right for time. My stopwatch says 25 minutes, so we're all good. And this is the last bit, and Steve is going to do, hopefully, an example project that will hopefully demonstrate what the investment principles are all about.
I think we're going to get this spot on time, which is a rarity. Yeah, we thought it'd be really nice just to have a little example at the end that kind of brings everything together so you can see what a project might look like. So this one, it looks from the outset like it's basically just a environmental project. That is a big part of it. But what we've done here, these are the investment principles that we've broken down onto this little wheel here. Because the core of this project was its kind of people-centered approach. It was really inclusive. They made kind of improvements to make access a lot better in the area as well. And what they did, I wrote this down, they welcomed over 450 primary school children, put on activities for women who aged over 55, activities for carers of dependents with disabilities and illnesses, families from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who had additional needs, and again, for people with physical disability, all underserved by, in this case, natural heritage. So you can see when it comes to the investment principles, you don't have to have like a 25% split between all 4 of them. Again, that focus is up to you which one you're really strong on, others you perhaps might not be as strong on, as long as they're all addressed. I always kind of think if you can smash each one out of the park, you're going to be in with a much better chance of getting funding, because remember that you are kind of in competition still with other players. So the better you can do on the investment principle, the more chance you've got of getting through. So yeah, so some of the activities they put in were nature-based, but others were kind of cultural heritage-based activities, such as they had poetry trails, nature trails, and outdoor classrooms in these new seating areas that they put in. So while there wasn't much there, you can see that little purple box, the organizational sustainability. It was clear that like the kind of year-round activities and the staff skills that were kind of enhanced over the duration of the project, they delivered online kind of heritage workshops. That's still beneficial to that organizational sustainability and resilience, if you like. And again, saving heritage wasn't really the key focus, but the improved access, the improved visitor experience, and they enhance the site. So they've kind of taken it into account by increasing the understanding of and really valuing heritage. So the more people that are valuing it, the more protection we owe that heritage is going to have. So that's just one little project we thought would come together quite nicely, just to show you how you could kind of build your project around those 4 heritage investment principles. And I think that's our last little talk, because then we've got questions if anyone wants one. Oh, and I should point out, if you sign up to our newsletter, it's on the website's homepage. It lets you know like all the latest things, because we're releasing these strategic initiatives throughout Heritage 2033. So when they come online, they tell you straight away through the newsletter. So yeah, so we're happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.